Hey, what's up, DNC Performance? We are back from vacation, tired, getting sick. Trying not to get sick. But we're back at the. We got the F body and the Mustang that we left off with, and a whole slew of parts that all showed up. So we got all the fuel system stuff back there. This is VS Racing, so blow off valve, wastegates, V-bands, tubing, more tubing. The Terminator X kit showed up before we left. Injectors should be here today. The T6 divided flange should be here in the next day or so. So yeah, but today I think what I'm going to work on, I did that panel before we left, and I am going to finish spraying out the firewall because it just kind of looks crappy that the panel looks good and then the rest of it looks, weathered. But I think I'm going to put the dash back in. Don't think I need it out for anything. So I'm going to work on pushing the dashboard back in and hanging the BCU, the body control module, because that controls all his power windows, locks, whatever else he has. It might just be as simple as like attaching it up to the actual firewall. Not sure. I think I'm going to mount the Terminator on the back of the glove box like I do a lot of them. But yeah, I'm going to get the dashboard pushed back in. Get the A-pillar stuff back on. I want to get all that back together so I don't mess nothing up or break anything. So far, so good. Yeah. And then probably work on feeding the Holly harness through. I think what I'm going to do is open up that hole enough to where I could put a grommet, a big grommet. And these wires here, I could either pull through the firewall. There's a grommet there. The factory grommet is still in there, somewhere down in there. But it needs to be bigger for the Holly harness. Then the catch can, I'll get rid of the little Mighty Mouse catch can because it's not a big enough catch can. Sorry, Jesse. It's just not a big enough catch can. Yeah, so we're gonna get working on that stuff. And I don't know. Feel like crap. But hopefully I'll just get all that stuff put in and then try and kind of maybe measure out not doing that again. So keep posted. Okay, I didn't get to finish the video yesterday. Had a little bit of an emergency, so try to get the light on. There we go. But I did get the dash all back in. I took the cluster out. A-pillars are back on. That front dash pad, whatever mahookers there. I took the airbag out somewhere over there on the floor in the garbage pile. I set the center console back in, but I didn't bolt it in because of that entanglement that basically fell out. Which is just over the years, people wiring stuff in and then not really going back through. And then I got all the factory stuff that I got to reclip back up behind the dashboard. So I haven't really gotten to that part yet because I came out here and I said I'm going to start doing the Holly, but it had all of this stuff, which I pulled most of the loom off of it now, but all of these plugs And all of this wiring is what draped across the front, something like that, and was clipped here. So all of this was here, and these came and they were loomed across the top of the radiator with all the headlight wiring. So this is all the factory PCM plugs, like the C1, C2, C100, something like that plugs. Knocking everything down. So that's all of that. I trimmed all that out. This other little guy was over here hanging out. This plug here came with the fan harness, and it was hanging out over here. Not really sure what this went to, like an evaporator canister or something like that. I don't know what was over there. So that's cut out. And then basically I took, and this is the passenger side headlight harness now. So there's really 2, 4, 6, 8 or 9 or 10, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9 wires in this harness now, rather than, you know, the additional 15 or so in that harness. So that's that section there. These are the ones that I clipped out. So I mean, there's a good amount of wires. I wasn't sure what, where'd you come from? Go away. I wasn't sure what this gray and white wire was for. That was looped into this, but I'm going to trace it back before I cut it. And then there was this little red and black one that was kind of hanging in front of the radiator. And again, I don't 100%, I think this is the transmission fan, but I wasn't 100% sure on that one either. Because the transmission fan was on a relay. It was on a relay, actually, which was this relay. But it wasn't, the blue white wire wasn't wired. The white that goes to a blue, that went to nothing. So I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, good job. It's a random loom going somewhere for something. Don't know if it has wire in it. There's this loom over here. I can't tell if it has wire in it or not. It does have wire in it. So I'll have to find out what that is too. Not sure what that is. Where are you? You dirty little bitch. There it is. It's going down. Oh, that's the transmission fan. Oh, yeah. I cut that off that relay. So that's the transmission fan, the power wire to the fan. Roll off electrical tape that I lost yesterday. Found it. Fuse box lid, whatever. Anyway, so, yep, I cut it all back to that section there. Now, for me to get that section, it is tucked all the way down at the bottom. And then loops back up and goes in the car there. So really that section there can't really, there's no easy way to do that. No sensible way, I should say, to do that. So we're not going to dive into, like, I already started separating out a bunch of these wires here that went across and to the ABS and all that stuff. I'm not going to start getting into all of that just yet. We'll do that if ever he pulls the motor. We can go through and get rid of the rest of the wires going in the firewall. So I'll take those. Like this orange will be a battery. This pink will be a 12-volt ignition. I'll take those and like deadhead them. Usually what I do is I fold them over, put a piece of heat shrink tube over the end to cover the open end, and then I take another piece of heat shrink tube to kind of seal it all off together. But right now I'm trying to dig through and find out where all of these go, and get rid of these. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna keep pulling wires out, start cleaning it up, and then I'll reloom it with my loom. I'm not going to go through doing all the little ends just because those get hidden behind. I mean, not really hidden, but those get tucked in there. This side here, I'm not pulling this headlight side out. I left it in because it goes down. It's literally just to run the headlights and parking lights. There's no extra wires in there other than what he's not going to use. He said something about the blinker system doesn't work. I do know that this bulb is, the pigtail was changed at one time. That could have something to do with it, but the bulb is absolutely annihilated inside the pigtail. You can tell it's just melted apart. So it could just be that his bulbs didn't work. I don't know. He wasn't really concerned with it. He's not overly concerned with it right now. It's just blinkers. We don't need blinkers where we're going. So I'm going to keep working on this, then jump under the dash, pull out as much of the wiring there, maybe shorten some of the wiring up that's extra long. And then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We got the injectors. The Snake Eater 1500 injectors came in, and their fuel filter with 10 ORB, because we're going to run 10 feed. All right, I have no idea what I was saying. Interrupted again. But anyways, I'm going to get back to wiring this stuff out here, clean it up, loom it, and then I'm going to jump under the dashboard, get all that cleaned up, done. Hopefully by the end of today, I'll have the ECU mounted on the glove box and that harness fed through the firewall. I got to open up the hole on the other side, but fingers crossed. I'll be back. Okay, so what I got left is, well, obviously this doesn't go. That's for the two-step stuff. These are the spare wires that I have to trace to this fuse box and see what they're for. Some of them are going to be triggers for like the fans. Some of them will be other things that went to and from the ECU. Pinks will be 12-volt ignition, stuff like that. Then there's these three here that go to this fuse box. Again, it's probably going to be one of them. It's probably going to be like the engine control. One of them, the maybe ABS ignition, PCM ignition, injector, all of that stuff. I have to look through. I have to find these three and either depin them or just kind of tie them up and hide them, pull the fuse to where we can reuse them later on if we ever need to. Same with these. Those ones down there, that's kind of a bigger pile. These go to the interior of the car. So again, a lot of these oranges are going to be battery power. Pinks will be 12-volt ignition. This big red is definitely a battery power for the ABS module. So those, most of these will probably just get trimmed back to like right here and kind of capped off with a big heat shrink tube, or a few pieces of heat shrink tube. The orange and the pinks I may leave a little bit long, but I'll probably leave enough of them that I can reuse them. I got the holly harness out and set on there to go down through the hole. Then I took these were just disconnected. They didn't go to anything. They went to the interior of the car. They came out here and they were cut like down in there. I pulled that out. I also pulled the oil pressure sensor wire out. That wire, which is for this gauge. I believe this is the oil pressure gauge. And this is his fuel pressure gauge, which he wants to keep the fuel pressure. So the sensor is in the line, like right there. It's like an extension line he ran off. But the oil pressure most likely won't do that one because it, to me, on the oil side, same on the fuel side, but on the oil side, you tend to get more leaks at joints, like threaded joints and stuff. And I'd rather avoid having any kind of oil leaks. I despise oil leaks. I hate fuel leaks. They cause fires, but I really hate oil leaks because they make such a mess of everything. So this is his fuel pressure gauge right now, the sensor and the wire that goes to the interior. I'm going to end up most likely taking this tube off, this AN tube, braided tube, whatever, taking it off from this adapter fitting here. It's right there on the factory fuel line. This is all coming off. The two factory lines are completely coming out of the car, the feed and the return, because like I said, I have dash 10 feed and dash 6 return for the regulator. So I'm going to try and find a nice place. I know he's getting rid of the ABS module. I just don't know when he wants to get rid of it, in a sense. So it's something I would really, in other words, I'd really like to mount the fuel pressure regulator right here. That's kind of my idea, is to mount it right there. That's away from, you know, the majority of the heat from the exhaust, because you got the header there. It's going to go down, across, and up into the turbo. The downpipe's going to stay on that side. So the majority of the exhaust heat will be over there. I'd like to keep the fuel system kind of on this side, even bring the fuel lines up, you know, same way the factory routed them. Just bring them farther forward away from that header and tie them into the regulator, the feed and the return. So that's kind of my idea. I could also make a little stand over here, put the regulator. I have to figure it out. But that's pretty much that side of things. You know, I got rid of that big long speaker wire. I kind of just tucked it and folded it up. These here, they can push up, zip tie, and they're really not that visible. They come to over here to the shifter. It has two buttons on the shifter. I know he said one is trans brake, one is like a rolling two-step. I don't know if he has a neutral safety hooked up. I'm going to look in the shifter. I'm not familiar with this shifter, and everything bolts on for the cover. So I'm going to look at that shifter and see if it has a built-in neutral safety, because it would be good to have that. Tracks actually require it. So it's something we definitely have to look at getting hooked up on here. It's a 4L80, so technically the neutral safety is usually on the side, the neutral safety position switch. But we could do it through the shifter if it has it in the shifter. I really hope it has it in the shifter, because that's just two wires that cut the circuit, and it's actually the easiest way to do it is to tie it in right here. This is his clutch safety. Pretty sure this is his clutch safety. It's like a bypass with a resistor in it. So that would be the easiest way, is to just cut this plug out, tie one side to one side of the switch, tie the other side to the other side of the switch, and then he's got a neutral safety switch. So hopefully it's in there. Inside there. Down inside there. Somewhere in there. Oh, actually, that might be it right there. No, that's not it. I don't know. I have to look, because I don't want to take that all apart and not have one in there. It's, like I said, it screws, but it's not hard. But it saves a little bit of time. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to jump on that side over there. Pull those factory wires out, because I don't think I need any of those factory wires. It might have the fuel level in it. That's the only one that I'm gonna need for the dashboard, is the fuel level. So I have to look at the wiring schematic, because I think me cutting those plugs there, I'm pretty sure that the fuel level is contained within these plugs here, one of these three. I just, for some reason, I always think purple, but I could be wrong on that. It could be a blue. I just don't remember exactly which one it is. But I do know that those wires are there. Well, there is a purple one. It's like a purple with a white stripe there. So I just have to find the F-body, you know, fuel level. and it may end up being in this wiring harness right here. Here's that purple with a white is right there. You can't see it. There it is. Purple with a white right there. So it may end up being that one. I'm just not 100% positive on which one it would be. So I'll find it, take it out, make sure I keep it. It may be in that harness. I don't think it is. I think that goes to the gauge cluster. So, which, see, this also has a purple with a white. No, that's brown with a white. Purple. It's just solid purple. So I just need to figure out. I know these are left blinker, right blinker, high beam indicator, MIL light. All that stuff is contained within here. Fuel level, coolant temp, all of them are here. This is basically your gauge cluster, and then some of the AC stuff that goes to the factory ECU, which we're not using any of that stuff. Obviously the car doesn't have AC. It'd be cool with AC, but he doesn't have it. So I'm gonna finish up pulling that harness out, getting this side done, and then getting the Holley harness in and start clipping everything together. He wants to keep the Lingenfelter kind of as a rolling two-step. So we're gonna keep that. I may, if the wiring harness allows me, I may relocate it to inside the firewall where I made that panel. That might be where I actually end up putting it, if that hole allows it and the wiring harness allows it. Then I will most likely put it on that side. I also have to figure out which side is which, even in odd bank. I got to figure that out on that Lingenfelter. But yeah, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but that's where I'm at. So I'll finish up in a few minutes. Well, it'll be a few minutes for the video, but it'll probably be a couple hours in real life. So I'm back on it. All right, final part. Holley harness is in. I fed it through the firewall where that hole is. I didn't have a grommet to fit that, and the worst part about it was the fuel pump relay doesn't fit through that hole with the harness. It almost fits by itself, like you could probably force it through, but with the harness in, it won't fit. So yeah, I had to cut it off to get the wires through, but I'm just gonna crimp them back on, heat shrink them. That'll be good. I got the Terminator mounted. It's up there. So that's hidden behind the glove box. The harness, it hangs down right now, but it won't once I put that fuel pump relay on. And what I'm gonna do is the fuel pump fuse, if I can get the light to stay, has a, I don't know what you want to call it, grommet kind of hole thing in it, and the relay also has like the tab. And I'm gonna pull the harness up to the top of that panel that I made and use one or two of the screws to hold it up. Definitely on the relay, I'm gonna hold the relay up, and that'll hold the harness up so that it'll be tucked out of the way, nice and neat. Nobody's feet will be in the way. I'll also probably try to find somewhere, well, I guess what I might end up doing is taking one of the screws out and using a grommet, like a P-clamp grommet around the harness and onto that. Maybe those two that are close to each other. So I'll use the fuel pump on one, use the P-clamp on the other one. That way the harness isn't hanging on the relay wires and like stressing the relay terminals. I tried to de-pin this relay, but the way it works is the pins actually come out the top. So what you do is you feed the wires through, the plug, and then you crimp them on this side, and then you pull them back in, and that's what locks them into place. So you can't de-pin this one. You can and push it out, but you can't pull this plastic off the wires. So that's why I ended up having to cut it. But it's not a big deal. It's 4 wires. It's 2 small ones, 2 medium ones. So there's really no way to mix them up in the harness. And then I got the battery. No, 12 volt ignition. The ground are sitting on the floor in here. The rest of the harness is out here, where this is that auxiliary plug or something they call it. I don't remember what they call it. It's like an auxiliary plug. So this has a 12 volt, a 5 volt, a sensor ground, and a chassis ground in this plug. What's weird is that they cap it and they don't give you terminals to like crimp wires. They make you buy that, which is kind of dumb. They should just give you the terminals and you can pull the rubbers, but whatever. This is the input and output harness here. So that's still in the box. Then you've got the main harness, not main harness, the other 3. The fuel pump feed is right here, the green. Battery is the big red. Tack signal is the blue, which we won't need, so most likely I'll cut the tack signal back, heat shrink it, cap it right there. And then these other 2, I have to see how his fuel pump's wired. That, he said this is the relay for it, or not relay, this is the fuse for it here. So I have to trace it to find the fuel pump. And then I'm going to trigger that relay with the Holly harness, because we're doing dual Walbros in the tank, dash 10 feed. So I'll get all that sorted, but the harness is in. Everything is plugged in with the exception of map sensor, manifold, temp, manifold, whatever, MAT, whatever they consider MAT, manifold absolute temperature, or air temperature, manifold air temperature. That one, because I don't have an intake tube. Fuel pressure is already right here, which is good, because worst case I can take and cut this one, and I have a ton of the leads from the sensors I buy, and it's the same plug, so I can extend this a little bit. I don't have to crimp a connection here, crimp a connection out here, and have 2 different connections. We could just do it once. That's once I figure out exactly where I'm going to mount the regulator. Like I said, my idea is to mount it probably right here on the strut. Try and keep it away from the brake line so he'll be able to work on them. May or may not. This one here that I got pushed down behind the ABS module, and then it's just kind of slung in there for now, but it's all loomed up, heat shrinked, and terminal on the end. That is the purple starter wire. That thing was long enough that when it was this way, it only came to this strut tower, and then it had a plug end somewhere right here. It had this plug end, which then the other half of the engine harness that he took off has this opposite plug that goes down to the eyelet on the starter. I asked him to bring it, but being that I'm routing it behind the motor, so it's not out here in the open, I strung it back there, and I looked and I said, you know what, it's a starter wire that you almost in a sense have to take off anyways. If there was a plug, yeah, that's cool, but the plug could fail. Never want that to happen. So I just made the decision to put an eyelet on it, heat shrink it real good, and it actually tucks way back there. That's that little braided loom you see way back. I also went ahead and made the new alternator cable, and I put the boot on the back. It drives me crazy when I see alternators with no boot on the back. That's a live battery feed, and all you have to do is drop something, especially when the alternator is high mounted. Like, you're pouring oil in here, you know, if you touch it, it arcs. It's not good, whatever. So we got the map and the coil plug here, but like I said, we're utilizing the Lingenfelter. I do believe that that harness is long enough to come out the firewall and grab both sides. I will have to cut the wires that go to it and you know, kind of feed them behind the dashboard across to this side if I do mount it on this side. I believe I'm gonna. He doesn't like it outside under the hood. He has it like Velcroed over there so that he could pull it off. It, the box is probably a sealed box. I don't really know. I would imagine it's a sealed box, but that would drive me nuts, like thinking about that box getting wet all the time. So I think the better option would be to feed the harness through that firewall hole down there and snap them in and mount that box, mount it on the back side of the firewall. To me, that would be the better option. I may just do it and not tell him. But he's probably going to watch this video and then kind of know. So, yeah, that's as far as I got. The harness is all in. I'm going to unplug it from the ECU, though, before I do the battery. I got battery cables coming. We're running to the trunk. So, I haven't even opened the trunk yet because the T-tops are sitting on the trunk. So, I got to get the T-tops back on the car, open the trunk, and see how I'm going to get the fuel pumps out. He wants to make like an access door there. So I got to look, see how I'm going to get the fuel pumps out, get the new ones in, mount the battery, and how exactly I'm going to run the cables. Plus, I have to run the Holley main battery and ground through the interior of the car. It's long enough. I know it's long enough that I could go under the car, and I may do that. I may route it with the battery cables and then come up and go in the firewall here. I just have to kind of play it by ear. I know those harnesses are really, really long, but being that they changed the harness some, I'm hoping they didn't change the length on that one. I haven't pulled it out of the bag yet and checked it. I say a lot because I'm freaking tired. No, it looks like they left it really, really long. So that's cool. So I'll do that. We are running down through the parts pretty quick. Not really. The wiring takes a while, but now that it's sorted to the sense that I can move forward, start putting stuff on the car. I feel comfortable now. I'm waiting for the T6 flange to come. Hopefully that'll be here tomorrow. But I got the other side of it too. I got the body control harness zip tied all the way up. So all of that's out of the way. So like I said, I'm ready to move forward and pick what I'm going to use and not use and figure out what all these are for. And then we get rid of all of this last bit of mess of wires and start putting parts on the car, building turbo kit for them. So for this one, that's it. I appreciate you watching. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified, leave me a comment. Appreciate you watching. Have a good day.